We're here today to talk about healthy living. We're going to show you a recipe that's delicious, it's easy to make, it's quick, which is part of one of the challenges in eating healthy is you have to make a lot of things from scratch, but it doesn't take very long, and we're going to show you that today. We're going to show you some cooking skills and talk about some other ways of living a healthy lifestyle.
That's right, and Andy's telling you a little bit about what we're going to be doing, but that's part of the Choose Well campaign for Aurora, that little or small actions or decisions that you make can make a big difference in your health. It's not necessarily so difficult if you take those small steps. So we're talking about regular health screenings to prevent a lot of problems later on, regular healthy eating. Can you plan menus, shop from a list? Do you try to incorporate more whole grains? Do you try to include more vegetables? What about exercise? Do you take 3 10-minute walks or 10 3-minute walks? Any of it works. And then just good rest and trying to get enough sleep so that you can be disciplined to follow through on all those things.
We're going to start out today, the first step of the process. We're going to peel the sweet potatoes. Everyone gets these bags at the grocery store. My wife says I'm a disaster in the kitchen, so I always try to peel my potatoes into the bag to cut down on the mess.
So you know, sweet potatoes have a little bit of an edge over white potatoes, and they're both about the same calories. For a 2-inch by 5-inch potato, they're about 100 calories, about 25 grams of carbohydrate, and about 2 to 3 grams of fiber. But the benefit of using the sweet potato is it provides about 37% of your daily value for vitamin C and about 400% of your vitamin A needs. It's got beta carotene, which is an antioxidant that helps fight disease and aging.
When cutting vegetables or anything, you want to make sure your knife is good and sharp. And so I always say to the novice, hold your steel like this, and you sharpen your knife pointing down. As you get more comfortable with your knife skills, you make sure the sides of the guard are pointing sideways, and then you can just sharpen it like this. And all I'm doing, it looks like I'm moving really fast, all I'm doing is making a nice figure 8 motion with my wrist, and that gets it nice and sharp. And then after you sharpen it, you just want to make sure you wipe your blade down to get any metal shavings off. And then because the sweet potato is kind of round, what I always do to ease with the cutting is I cut just a little bit off so I can lay this on my cutting board and it's not rolling around on me. And then when I'm cutting, I'm rubbing the edge of the knife along this part of my fingers, and I curl my fingers in so I don't cut my fingertips off.
I like that flat surface. I've never known to do that. Just cut the bottom of the potato so you don't roll back and forth.
And when you're making other recipes with other potatoes, you can do that too.
I was wondering, for those of you that don't care much for sweet potatoes, how about using other roasted vegetables?
Correct. You can use like a roasted squash, or you can use roasted root vegetables. Just brush them with a little olive oil, a little kosher salt, and put them in the oven at 375 until tender. Now that our sweet potatoes are cut, we've gone ahead and pre-roasted some, just for convenience. We take half the amount of salt that's on the recipe, sprinkle it over the potatoes, roast at 375 until tender, and then let them cool. You can do that a day ahead of time, the morning of. This is a great recipe to take like to a picnic. Just leave the dressing separate, and then just before you serve it, toss it all together.
Okay. The current dietary guidelines say to include about 2 cups of vegetables per day, and some people kind of turn their nose up and say, how am I going to do that? But when you look at all the different foods that we're incorporating today, from the beans to the potatoes to the tomatoes to the greens, those are all considered vegetables. So it's really not as challenging as you would think when you consider how many foods are considered vegetables.
So after my potatoes are cooked and cooled, I'm going to make the dressing as the first step. I'm going to take my olive oil, my balsamic vinegar, my chopped garlic, and my salt and pepper, and then just whisk it all together. You can do it in the same bowl that you toss the salad in to cut down on the dishes, and then continue from there.
And so the advantage of commercial dressing versus the homemade dressing is the sodium. As you well know, if you've looked at the serving size on a label of commercial dressing, it's sometimes 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium per serving, whereas the one that Andy's prepared is probably under 100 milligrams of sodium. When you take your balsamic vinegar, your oil, little herbs, you could do some kosher salt in there, and garlic to give it good flavor.
So after our potatoes are roasted and our dressing's made, it's time to cut the peppers. What I do is I cut them in half, and then with that same bag that I put my potato peels in, I pick out all the seeds and the white membrane of this. And then it says to julienne cut them. A julienne cut is a French term that just basically translates to matchstick. You want the size of your peppers to be about the size of a matchstick.
Ooh, you do that well.
A lot of years of practice.
All right. And a sharp knife.
Yes. So now we've gotten to the point where our dressing's made, our potatoes are roasted, our peppers are cut. If you want to make your own garbanzo beans and black beans, you can just boil them from scratch. I, for convenience sake, just use the canned, and then after you open the can, I always rinse them.
That helps to reduce the sodium. As you know, beans are partly protein and partly carbs for energy. And so a good, inexpensive source of protein, it's about 6 cents per serving. Beans have a number of health benefits, one of them being heart healthy. They have a soluble fiber that reduces the lousy cholesterol or the LDLs. They also are good for blood sugar control. They have a good fiber content that digests very slowly and doesn't allow your sugar to have that big spike. It's a very slowly digesting carb. So it's good for blood sugar control. It's also good for regularity. GI-wise or gastrointestinally wise, there's a resistant starch in beans that once it reaches the colon, it has something called prebiotics that stimulate the growth of the good healthy bacteria, the probiotics. And then there's also a weight benefit to using beans. It's a lot of fiber, it fills you up, there's a big satiety with beans. So they're a good food source if you haven't used them much.
So now that all our ingredients are set, and if there's an ingredient you don't care for, or you have a Roma tomato in your fridge and you don't feel like buying cherry tomatoes, feel free to substitute. One of our taste testers at the first showing said that something like basil would be good in this recipe. You're free to exchange any of the vegetables or types of lettuce even, the herbs you use. They're all good substitutions. So we're gonna throw in our beans, our 2 kinds of lettuce.
It's pretty simple. There's no real science to how you're just throwing it together.
No, it just all goes together and then gets slightly tossed, and literally takes a couple of minutes to throw together.
So the way that we have this on your recipes that you can pick up is that it's to be used as a main dish, but like Andy said earlier, it could also be a side dish. It's very colorful, it has a lot of crunch to it, and pretty satisfying. It's about 285 calories as a main dish and about 4 grams of fat, and about 500 milligrams of sodium per serving as a main dish.
And then after it's all thrown together, we just garnish it with some fresh limes, and there you go.
Now, one good thing about this is it's based on all fresh foods. And as you know, we rely on more and more processed foods as we go along with our busy lifestyles and things like that. So we want to try to get to use more fresh foods to get back to the real good flavor.
Thank you.